Here we go, retaining walls for dummies. First, I'm going to explain why we do it the way we do it, which in this case would be something like this. Clean rock, no dense grade. Once we have our trench dug, we do our base rock with all clean rock, no dense grade. Get the base set in here. Everything is completely permeable. Now the next part, we feel that the excavation's extremely important, and we talk about this in other videos of shelving this excavation. And why are we going to do that? I've drawn another diagram over here to show a cone type excavation, which is super typical. Most people are going this direction, geotextile fabric, separation fabric, and then they put this cone in here, but we don't believe in that because of how this pushes down. We'll go into that in a second. So when you have it excavated like this, if you were to pretend that there is columns of rock in here, if you add a bunch of weight right here, this column is going to press down evenly across here. Same with here, press down, presses evenly down here. Almost like a gabion wall. And then you have the same thing back here, straight pressure, straight down. Now this is when the geogrid really comes in and really plays a huge factor in the way that this is shelved. Now we add this geogrid coming across in these layers, like so, and you have this full column evenly distributing weight on the grid. And there's a lot of dispute on this, but I can tell you, engineering wise, this makes the most sense. Not only makes sense, it is just proper. With the PSI and amount of pounds per square inch pressed down here, this is going to be stronger. Now let's move over to the normal excavation I see on all the social media platforms, is this style right here. It's all dug out, there's a big ass pile of dirt up here ready to push back in there. And you also see people just doing a little bit of grid here and a little bit of grid here. We don't think that's a sufficient amount. It just doesn't work out with the pounds per square inch coming down. So what you're doing is creating this pie shape. So let's say, even if you use permeable rock, you create this pie shape and it's pressing down, but the force is getting transferred and pushed forward no matter what statistics you go by. That's just the way it works. So that's why this is not very good. It's pretty simple to see it when you're drawing it out, that if you were to take this as a wedge and start hammering this down, it's going to push the wall out. So that's what happens when we do the dense grade in here. So now let's switch to dense grade. So guys are compacting this in lifts. They compact everything in lifts. Everything is just tight as a fiddle string back here. No room for movement, no nothing. Now the water comes, our water comes in, saturates all this dense grade. Now we have the freeze thaw like we do in Illinois, and this little wedge just became like a hydraulic jack in all directions. As soon as this takes all the water, gets completely saturated and starts to freeze, it is going to push out. Now, you would think that a guy would, hey, let's leave some room back here for a little flexibility, but when you do all of that dense grade and get that all compacted back here, there's no room for anything. So the moment it freezes and expands, you now have pressure on that wall. It's just the way it is. And to go a little further, I know a lot of guys are taking this pile of dirt up here and they're dumping it right in here and not using any of this. That's even worse. So now I got this idea planted in your head. Just save that for later. Now we come over here. So let's say we did go with dense grade and everything gets compacted and blah, blah, blah. At least the pressure's only from the side. It's not a cone anymore. But again, why would you put dense grade in there with no room for flexibility or freeze thaw when you could use 3/4 clean or 1-inch clean rock? Works much better and is completely permeable. Another little quick thing is when clean rock goes in, clean rock is 97.3% compacted the way it sits. There's nothing to be compacted, there's no fines. And I think that number's right, I could be wrong. But it never hurts to come back with a compactor and get everything vibrated down into the spots. Now that you're using an open gray base with clean 3/4 inch rock and you start to shelf this up and you start adding your geogrid where you want it, this is going to make a much more substantial wall. It's going to hold up forever, basically. It can handle as much water as you can put to it. It can handle the freeze thaw, all of the above. So it's really not much of an argument why this is the better option than this. Now let's move on to how we finish this off. So I've had a lot of people ask me, what we do is we put another layer of weed barrier geotextile across the top, and we prefer to put decorative rock up to it and then edging. So this wall will always have an edge protecting it, and what that edging and the decorative rock does is basically make a giant drain inlet. So now we have this huge drain inlet that is hidden by decorative rock. The water can come underneath, but this protects the top of the wall and the interior of the wall from getting sediment and junk down into this clean rock. Because the longer this rock stays clean down here and porous, the longer this wall is going to not be susceptible to freeze thaw. Once this permeable rock becomes saturated with soil, debris, all kinds of stuff, dirt, whatever gets down in here, and it becomes solid and now can freeze, now you're going to get your push. Now, guys have said, well, we just put dirt up 3 inches at the top, which is fine. You just need to make sure you have that separated really well up here, so none of this, usually it's always a slope coming into your wall, and the water flows down, collects all the dirt, and brings it down and starts filling in all the porous rock. And you know, a lot of these walls are all going to be different, and they're going to be set up different. They're going to have different types of drainage. It just depends on the project. So if you disagree with this, you know, you just got to take the information you have and develop your own program that is going to work for that particular wall. And one last thing, let's talk about the drain system. So if you put drains in here, most of the time they're right here. And this is like a mandatory thing, but as I tell guys, I don't understand how you can think that this actually works, these drains at the bottom. It's like an old school French drain style thing that doesn't make any damn sense at all, and I'm going to show you why. So you have this drain back here, and it's, you know, perforated and whatnot. You got this clean rock down here. The only way for this drain to take water and actually move it is for this to be completely filled up. So from the bottom to the top with water, to put water into this pipe. Now, if it does get to the top of this pipe, the next part of the stage is crucial, and I know most guys don't pay any attention to it, is how level and at a grade this pipe is running behind the wall. See, if the water raises here and then the pipe bellies up here, this is all open. If the water even gets in the pipe here, it's just gonna leave the pipe again here because it's perforated, guys. That's the part I don't understand. People think it magically hops up in the pipe and then rides this pipe all the way down. It rides the pipe to the next perforated hole and then leaks out unless the whole pipe is underwater. Am I wrong there? Or that's just gravity? So the way around that is a lot of guys call it the taco. So you take your geotextile and you run it down here and you bring it around and you create this channel with the geotextile, and now this water builds in here and hits this and does go out and will puddle in here all the way down and go out. Same with this bottom one. If you take geotextile, run it down and run it up, however, now it's sealed up and it'll hold that water in here and get rid of it. But without that geotextile barrier, it's just going to go down into your channel or down into your trench. It's just going to mitigate down through the soil. So back over to this one, if you think that that water is going to run down and go into a pipe right here, you're living in a fairy tale land, because it's going right past the pipe, right down into the dense grade, and then it'll continue to saturate the dense grade all the way through the trench. And remember, once the trench is saturated, you have freeze thaw. And a lot of times on this, guys don't think about, the sun shines on this side of the wall. And this is where the sun will thaw out a certain amount of area behind this, and then overnight freezes again. And that's where you start to get the freeze thaw, is unproportioned areas of freeze thaw. Warming up, still cold back here. So keep that in mind. If it's hard and pushing back here and the sun thaws the front out and makes it soft, it's even more susceptible to freeze thaw push. And I do know I misspelled that for a reason. Retaining walls for dummies, boys. I love you guys. Drop your stuff in the comments. Hopefully this isn't too much for you to take in.